process of Islamization is already, of course, very advanced. And we are now entering into a different stage of it. And we saw this 2 days ago. In the Quran, there are 3 stages of development, as many of you no doubt know, in the doctrine of Jihad. And the first is when Muhammad first became a prophet and began to preach in Mecca that he was the new prophet of the one true God. Most people paid no attention. He got a small band of followers together. The Quraysh, Muhammad was a member of the tribe of the Quraysh. They were the pagan Arabs in Mecca. And the Quraysh leaders did not like what he was saying at all because it challenged them. They had the Kaaba, which was there at that time too, before Islam, and it was full of idols, 360 pagan idols. And the Arabs from all over Arabia would go there to venerate their gods. So the Quraysh had a shrine. You know, if you've ever been to Rome or Jerusalem or Fatima or Lourdes, you know it's a big tourist trap. And so was Mecca and the Kaaba. So they didn't like that Muhammad was preaching that there was only one God and all these other gods were nothing, and that they should not be worshipped, because the Quraysh believed then that that would cut into their livelihood. Muhammad ultimately did not do that by making it into a Muslim shrine. But in any case, at that time, he taught tolerance and peace. And whenever you see the imams on television preaching tolerance and peace, they are quoting from the parts of the Quran that were revealed to Muhammad at a time when he was weak and his enemies were strong, and he had no political or military power. So he was not actually preaching tolerance and peace of non-Muslims. He was asking for tolerance and peace for them. He was asking to be tolerated.
Same as what happens now.
Precisely. That's the stage that we are in now in Europe and America. See, you may know that the stages of the jihad in the Quran work chronologically, and that in Islam there is the doctrine of abrogation, in which something that is contradicted by something that is revealed later, the later statement overrules the earlier one. But the earlier one is not necessarily cancelled altogether. It's still in the Quran. When Muhammad moved to Medina and became a political and military leader, then he began to teach defensive jihad, that the Muslims could take up arms to defend themselves against their enemies. And in practice, this was aggressive and offensive. He ordered the Muslims to raid the caravans of the Quraysh, and this was the occasion of the first battle between the two. And then he began to preach offensive jihad, which was to make war against the unbelievers and to subjugate them simply by virtue of the fact that they were unbelievers. But those stages only came when he began to get military and political power. Now, the offensive jihad takes precedence over the others, and those statements abrogate the statements of tolerance. However, when the Muslims are in the same position that Muhammad was in Mecca, then the same conditions prevail. So, in other words, when there's a small group of Muslims without political or military power, then they preach tolerance and peace. Just like Muhammad did when he was a small group in Mecca and didn't have political or military power. When they begin to gain military and political power, then they become more aggressive. I believe we are now moving from the first stage to the second stage in Europe, and in America to a lesser degree. And that ultimately there will, of necessity, come the third stage as well. And this will be open warfare. It's a very sad situation, but if we stand down now, then the game is already over. And so at this point, even just to continue to have a public presence will show them you're not afraid, which is what they want to do, is to frighten you, to strike terror into your hearts, as the Quran directs. and that you're going to continue. And even that, as I explained, will create confusion for them, because they have no capacity to understand that kind of a situation. They don't understand infidels who will not be intimidated, will not submit.